the report gotten to
We
get
were
yourself
putting in a buffer so we could swear. We were putting in like our swear buffer. That's why.
our dump button?
Mm-hmm.
We were putting that in. Yeah, that's what
Yep.
we're doing. John, how you doing, my friend? How was your weekend? I hope it was grand, filled
Yeah,
with
it was good.
adventures.
My road warrior tendencies continue. I'm traveling all across this wonderful United States trying to pass some good laws. But other than that, I can't complain. I'm enjoying myself. What about you, Ted?
I'm doing okay. It's quiet weekend, so to speak. I sat and watched football. I watched some soccer in the morning. It's just kind of like doing, kind of twiddling my thumbs until the soccer I actually care about starts up, which will be the American side of the game, which should be getting started soon. We're coming up. It's coming fast and thick. We got
There was a game tonight on MLSsoccer.com. It's happening. We're
yeah.
here.
Yeah, we are here. We are officially in preseason mode. We'll get into to DC a little bit. We're going to open the show with some Washington Spirit because DC have been a little quiet, and we'll maybe discuss a little bit about that. So, if you're wondering, normally we do DC first, then we hit Spirit. This time we're flipping the script because the Spirit went crazy. Any show related stuff you want to drop? Any news notes?
Just the old
Anything?
standard stuff. Thanks for being we've had some new Patreons join us in the last couple weeks, which is very cool because it's in the off season and we're not doing anything really on our Patreon. So thanks for that. If you're new to this and haven't been watching the show or listening to the show very long, we typically, once the season starts, we'll do a weekly show that everyone gets on Tuesday. If you're a Patreon at any level, you get the show on Monday night. We have a $5 Patreon show that comes out on Friday that only comes out for those Patreons and doesn't ever get released to the general listening public. So if that's something that interests you, consider joining us. There's lots of ways to support the show. There's merch you can buy. You could subscribe to us on Twitch. You could do a bunch of stuff. But the main point is we're now finally getting into the brunt of the season, and the shows are going to come fast and furious, and the interviews are going to start coming. All that stuff. It didn't feel like a break, but I guess we had a break, Ted. I guess we had our off season.
We've done the 2 week show, and we've been pretty good at sticking to that schedule. I've been proud of us. There've been some times we've strayed away from that schedule, or we haven't done it. So I've been very proud of us. Let's jump right into it. It's been a couple weeks since we last talked to you. When we last talked to you, everything was hunky dory with the Washington Spirit. They had seemingly a roster. There was a coach coming in that we all were kind of excited about, even though he wasn't joining until the summer. Things seemed hunky dory, and then draft day hit, and chaos. Chaos, I guess, is the right word to say it. It started off, I believe, with the news that Sam Stab, a long time, not a long time, I don't know how long she's been with the team. I can't actually think how long she's been with the team, but she's been. It feels like a real stalwart out there in the defense.
Starting ever since and never not since she joined the team. So that's the important bit. I believe she was at the team for 4 years, I believe.
Yeah, her ability to play the ball with her feet, make passes, it almost seemed like she was sort of an irreplaceable part. Mark Krikorian decided to laugh in our faces and say, "That's what you think," and traded her away. We don't know how much advance notice she got about this. There's been a lot of news and a lot of discussion lately. A lot of trades that are happening amongst NWSL players where they're being, kind of uprooted from their homes, moved to teams. This is something that's not uncommon in American sports. I will say it's getting maybe a little bit more attention amongst NWSL players. Also, NWSL players make significantly less than a lot of the big time NFL, NBA players that we see. So, not a new conversation, but certainly one that's I found interesting over the
I
past couple
have
weeks.
too, and I feel like I've changed my thinking a lot on that
Mm-hmm.
over the time. I think we've been covering the NWSL now for, is this the third season we've been doing it? I think so.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. And to your point, it is certainly getting a lot more sympathy and understanding and like loud protestation on the NWSL fan side. And my gut reaction originally was to just be like, yeah, it sucks, but this is just kind of the way it is. And then I thought it doesn't really have to be that way, though, does it? Really?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I mean, I don't think you should necessarily get to veto necessarily, but you can certainly be made aware in a way that's like not similarly Julian Gressel, like Stephen Goff getting it before Julian Gressel. There's a way that you could probably do this so that they have a little bit of time to prepare without this is not for public consumption. You can't release this information. If you do, something bad will happen to you, but we are thinking about trading you. We're in discussions, make your plan. This is probably going to happen. So yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I think that I have changed. I think I had my eyes open sort of by the response to this. And in the past, I think I probably wasn't as, sympathetic as I am now. But anyway, But one of the two trades that we can discuss, the other one too, is another. What was a heartbroken? What did the Instagram say? Surprised and heartbroken, something along those
Surprised and
lines.
heartbroken, yes, came from this one. But I think just want to kind of add to your point. I think in soccer, you especially see this maybe get more attention because it is simply not the way the rest of the world operates. Yes, there are transfer fees that teams pay. The teams go out and make payments, but the player still has to agree with it. If you've played any amount of Football Manager, you get agreed on a transfer fee, and nothing's more disheartening than the player's like, nope, sorry, I'm not interested in negotiating with you. I really don't care how much you can't offer me any money in the world that would make me want to come play for the Richmond Kickers. I absolutely do not want to be there. So, we've all seen this. Trades are obviously work very differently around the U.S. It'll be interesting to see. We've seen the players sort of advocate for a little bit about this. I think there have been some significant improvements. RJN in DC says NWSL season seems to be more active league wide this offseason. Do you agree? And why might it be happening? I think the biggest thing has been free agency. Free agency
And the
coming
expansion draft.
in the expansion draft, part of it as well. But I think especially free agency has really kind of supercharged a lot of things with teams sort of making moves, making trades, and also going out and being aggressive and trying to attract players. And I think the Spirit are coming out on the losing end of it in a lot of ways, and maybe ways that maybe we didn't think would happen. I think they were maybe a team you thought, with the amount of investment that's coming into the club and everything like that, they could attract some of these players. And I think they're finding that maybe they aren't. So they're looking elsewhere. And part of that is coming through the other trade that happened, which is probably of the trades. I think the Sam Staub trade was like, oh, that's a huge shock. I think I've sort of tweeted the FB ref stats on both the players that were traded here. And I think Sam Staub showed to be a much more crucial part of how the Spirit play. But Ashley Sanchez, another player sort of part of that sort of magic triangle in the attack for the Spirit in Sanchez, Hatch, and of course Trinity Rodman sort of being traded away. Very surprising, maybe shocking move. I think the team hasn't had a good run maybe since they've won that championship, but you never really got the impression that there was a lot of sort of extra factors. It sort of seems like maybe this is an indication that Mark Krikorian is, I don't know, want to say starting over a little bit, maybe trying to retool some things. I don't really know. It's really perplexing that you trade probably two of your, certainly locked in starting 11 players that any organization would want to have. 4 draft picks. You got a little bit more for Sanchez, $250K in allocation money. Just sort of on the surface, very baffling. And I think one of those moves that I think you're going to look at it now and say, like, it doesn't make any sense. If any of these if we talk about one of their draft picks maybe panning out, maybe this looks like a completely genius move. John, the dust has kind of settled on this. I think maybe we'd have some hotter reactions if we did this after the draft. But
I think that's true.
How are you sort of feeling? Maybe you had some time to settle. The shock's kind of worn off. How are you feeling about the whole selection?
It's very much a half settled situation, right? They have not backfilled these trades yet. The draft, you cannot tell me that these draft players are going to come in and contribute on day one in a way that replaces these two players. Sam Staub, as you said before, is literally irreplaceable when looking at NWSL standards. Her skill set, her grid, whatever that thing is called, is pretty impossible to match. Ashley Sanchez had a up and down season. She often does have an up and down season. Post World Cup, she was not the same player. I have no doubt, that sort of the disappointment of that had to carry over for her a little bit. The conversation all the time that I was having with other people in the press box and online is that it was really a matter of Mark Parsons' style and formation sort of going away from Ashley Sanchez's strength, and whatever comes next, whatever coach they bring in next would probably want to focus on those things because she's an asset. You just signed her through her 3-year contract in September. She's a long part. She was obviously a long-term part of this club, but then she wasn't. Particularly after bringing in a coach that I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know a lot about the Barcelona team style in the women's side, but people said that she was an ideal fit for what they expected to happen from a pressure perspective, from a possession perspective. So it is a bit of a head scratcher. It's still a head scratcher until those spots are refilled, which they have not been yet. I can't say it's a great move. Sam Staub will be very, very difficult to replace. I am not. I don't know where this team thinks they are at this moment. To your point, there are teams that are loading up heavy in free agency. There aren't a lot of new. There are some sort of inflows to the league. So right now, it's mostly just sort of pieces on the board moving to new spots for the most part. There isn't a lot of influx of new European or South American talent. There are some now. Brazil. There's a Brazilian player who got signed to, I believe, to Kansas City today to play with dman, which people are getting excited about. But the Spirit are, just sort of in a holding pattern right now. There's news later on. We'll talk about coaching. I think that will be part of it, and we're going to walk through these draft picks. But I'm just sort of, incomplete grade. I think you have to do it. Talk to me on the opening day, and then I'll have a more formed opinion about you. Do you feel kind of similar?
Yeah, I do. I will say maybe I got sucked in by a Bethune sizzle reel. I hope I'm saying that. I hope I'm saying that last name right.
I
That
think
is
Bethune is probably the way.
Probably Bethune. Sorry, Croy Bethune. I think is how you pronounce that.
If you're new to our show, the one promise we can make is that we're gonna be calling people a couple different names until we meet them, until we've introduced them personally. It's just going to be that way. So
until we have our first broadcast where we get it right,
that'll help.
I will say we are one of the few shows that nailed the DCGM.
You did.
Name.
You did.
I made sure. I wanted to make sure I got that one right.
You did.
But Bethune appears to be sort of the Sanchez replacement. She's very quick on the ball. I watched some of her highlights, some of her sizzle reels, and she looks pretty good, potentially maybe as good. Would have been a number one pick. There is the one thing, and I know you're immediately going to go here. Injury history has not been her friend. I believe she's had 3 ACL injuries. Did I read that right?
You did. You did read that right. Not good.
3 ACL injuries on the same knee. So that is not something you want to see. It is, of course, ACL injuries are a massive problem all over women's soccer. It's become sort of the injury that seems to be happening over and over again, and no one can seem to figure out why it happens so much in women's sports. But I think this is sort of, I think Krikorian's looking at this as, they've paid Sanchez a lot of money. She didn't perform well, regardless if that's fair or not. She didn't really perform this year. I would say, maybe they look at what happened with her in the national team and they think maybe that star has faded a little bit. And I think they said, we're paying her a lot. We could use the cap space. I think, this college player could come in and potentially be better than her. We're going to trust our staff, our world quality staff, to try to keep her healthy. And, I think maybe that's not the worst bet in the world with the amount of investment we've seen, from ownership, but it's still a risk. I see your face and I understand you think it's a risk.
It is a risk. I mean, you look at Savannah Coleman, who they drafted last year, who's basically fell sort of exactly the same situation, I think, except for later in the draft position fell from Colorado because she had a bazillion leg injuries, and she came here and had a leg injury and was out for the season. So like, there is sometimes physiology trumps any sort of preparation you can do. I don't really care. That's fine. This is good. This is a good looking player. I would really push the brakes on will come in and be better than Ashley Sanchez. I feel like that is she's a national team player. She killed it in international play. At her best, she was top 10% of the league. At her worst, middle of the road. I think she will. A player coming in from college. There are very few stories now. Looking at the Spirit draft, very, very few cases of players coming in and being able to immediately contribute in the last 3 years. Since Mark Krikorian took over, potentially you could say that there have not been quality. Paige Mateer is a non-drafted free agent, doesn't count. All of the draft picks from last year did not contribut.
Well, Anna Halferty, but hold on a second. They did not pick till what, the fourth round
last year?
Yeah, they did not have a high amount of quality draft picks. Like they were out, I think, in the first. They did not pick until very, very late in the draft. So the quality that they got in the last draft, I don't know if that's a fair assessment for him. And
all misses from last year.
Fair, But again, I would just add they were very much in the late, and then I think they made a few moves to try to, position and get some more draft picks. But I mean, I'll go back and look at that draft, but I don't recall them having a pick till like the third round. So
I'll
I
be
don't know.
happy
I'm gonna give them a little bit of pass on that draft.
if it turns out that this is another 4 first-round picks, Dorian Bailey, the Dorian Bailey draft, where they just ended up turning 4 players into 4 eventual championship winners for the Spirit. I will put on my dunce cap in 2025. But I am somewhat concerned that the team thinks that. I mean, I don't know. Again, we don't know. We have not seen the next move. We've not seen the first team filled out all the way. But if they think, yeah, I mean, we've got some players here from good programs. We've got Clemson players. We've got another Arkansas player. We've got, we're ready to go. We'll just drop them right in. NWSL is not the best league in the world or anything. These players are all ready. We'll just trade away national team starters or national team fringe players and just roll right in. And maybe they will, but maybe they won't.
I mean, I will add that I feel like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people, and maybe you're not doing this, but this is not like the MLS version of the Super Draft. There is no like homegrowns. Very few develop. I mean, you look at, there's only been a handful of players that have been drafted before the age of 18. I mean, this is not
For
a league
sure.
that is not a league that is developed. So there is immense amount of talent in this draft, and
There
you
is.
can still be successful drafting smart, getting good players, and having them come in. I think
You can.
Yeah.
I just think that the NWSL is not the WSL. There are no mugs among this league. So yes, there is talent in the draft, but all these teams are pulling the best from across the world on these rosters. So yes, there is talent in there, and some of them can come in and contribute right away, but not all of them, and not every one of the first round is going to be that case. You still got to make the right picks. They still got to fit for your roster. You still got to develop and train them well. They got to stay healthy. All those things. Anyway, let's. There's some. You have some quotes here from Krikorian. It sort of talks about we're not women's college or men's college professionals, so we have to take their word for it about their evaluation. So, do you want to walk through Krikorian's perspective on these players?
Yeah, and this came directly from the website, so obviously they weren't going to ask, but I thought it's helpful just to kind of see, whether he had any of his thinking there. I think we talked a lot about Croy. I'm not going to dig too much more into her. She's a very, basically watch Ashley Sanchez. Maybe she has a little bit more technical ability. I felt like Ashley Sanchez's ability sort of came from her ability to sort of try stuff and do different things. Croy seems a little bit more technical on the dribble, just on some of what I've seen with her. She can sort of beat players sort of one-on-one. She can, make that type of pass. I saw a little bit of that from Ashley Sanchez, obviously, but I can't really recall too many moments that really made me kind of like where she really just would beat players. Again, different game, coming from college to the professional level. I absolutely understand that, but just maybe something I brought in here, a little bit different about how she plays, but sort of a similar mindset. And, I think a lot of people around the draft who watched them said, if you wanted an Ashley Sanchez replacement, this was her. She was right there in the draft. So remains to be seen. Again, we still don't know what type of international players this team is looking to bring in. So it's going to be interesting to see. The other draft pick, which was made with pick 5, is Hal Hirschfeld, sort of a defense-minded midfielder. Think Andy Sullivan, think Paige Mateer. This sort of felt like definitely early on, it was definitely best available. And maybe it was that way for the whole draft. Again, I think this is a team that's not hurting. I think if you're going to trade away Sam Staub, I think the one most important thing is they didn't really come away with anybody. I think that's going to replace Sam Staub. I could be completely wrong, but
the second pick was the one everyone talked about. The one that went to Bay FC was the center back that was a potential like franchise cornerstone center back, which she didn't fault us.
Yeah, she did not.
And I don't know if that was the plan, right? Like that could have been the thinking when they gave up to get the 4th pick, or was it 3rd pick or 4th pick?
It was third and 5th. So it may have been Croy was there, and there was like, and he was like, I got to take this player, and went out to get it. So yeah, this is the player who I think you're looking at more, maybe falling behind either Matei or Andy Sullivan. Maybe it's when Sullivan goes away for the Olympics, presumably. Don't know how anything sort of changed with the new coach coming in there. Next pick, I believe, was sort of later in the first round, was McKinney Morris. So a right back, can play up top and play a little bit more towards full. Actually, I believe I might have made a mistake. I might have forgotten a player. I believe I have Kate Wisner. I did not get that. So she's the best back coming out of She was the player that came out of the draft. So sorry, I may have made a
So
mistake there.
she's your backup left back behind Gabby Carl, unless Gabby Carl is not going to be here anymore.
Yeah.
And there was conversation on draft night, basically like, why did you pick this player with Gabby Carl unless you intend to maybe move on from her? So keep an eye on that one.
Yeah.
I believe she was just signed to an extension.
Yeah. So maybe keep an eye on that one. McKinney Morris, another sort of versatile. I think she's the versatile right back sort of later in the draft. Another player I think they can say can maybe push forward. I believe it's what I saw, or maybe that was. Yeah, I think there was a player that can also potentially push forward. I believe some people who watch it were saying kind of wanted her in maybe a three man backline system where she could play more of a wing back type of role. Anna Pajol, I believe is how you pronounce that. I actually looked this one up.
Did you? All right, well,
I tried to look this one up because I was like,
you looked at that. You looked at that Slavic name. You're like, I'm not even gonna attempt to figure out Podokil. Who knows? Anyway,
yeah,
she's
another. It's Podojil, and I remember it's Podojil.
Another torn ACL coming in, but this one, I believe, is she gonna miss the whole year? Yeah, probably. Yeah. Looking forward to rehab. So probably this is a pick for the future, basically.
Yeah, she was later, I believe, in the third round, so definitely not sort of a very much a reach pick, but a player who I think Krikorian looked at and said, I think was probably had her on the list and was like, if she's available when we get to the third round, then I'll probably take her because I think we can, again, our medical staff. Krikorian, I think, is feeling really confident that is that the medical staff can really keep some of these players going. And then Courtney Brown, another player coming in. I did not get.
She's a local. I believe she's from Maryland. Somewhere close by.
Another central midfielder, can play deep. Apparently, can also push forward as well. So I think they did. I would say center of midfield. They went and they got some more depth for them. I think there's a lot of players
needed
that are needed. They need depth pretty much everywhere on the field. There's a lot of players that are not going to be there. I'll go ahead and drop it right here. I had this sort of later in the show. But you've got Bailey Feist going to the KC Current. That just got dropped today, along with Cam Bagalski going to Chicago. So
going back to she was a former Chicago player, so at least she's got a track record there. If there was a Cincinnati team, she would have gone there. She goes back to the Midwest. I think Bailey is a player that you and I and the whole world were very, very high on before her ACL injury. She came back. She did not look like the same player. I'm happy that she was able to get a multi-year contract, and sort of build her way back to health. KC Current midfield pretty crowded. She might find herself in a similar situation, struggling to get minutes. It's starting to get to the point where this league needs a reserve component for some of these. They got a lot of games and everyone gets rotation, but I'm starting to think that I feel like as they expand rosters and they expand the salary cap, which they did, by the way, we had not mentioned that salary cap up 40% year over year from last year. So that's big. It's still like $2.5 million, but big progress. Cam Bagalski, a player who I think was much better as a wingback, got moved more to the wing, attacking wing under Mark Parsons. I didn't think she was as impressive back there or up there. So hopefully she finds a spot. Chicago's got a lot of opportunity. They have lost most of their players, including one we're about to talk about in a second. But that I think good spot for her too.
Yeah, and we did forget to mention. I think the Spirit did get sort of one, I guess, big win, you could say, in free agency, and that was Casey Kruger. I'd forgotten about her again so far back after the chaos of the draft. Right back from free agency. Originally played in Chicago. That was a player I think a lot of Chicago fans are really upset to lose. So I think it's good to see that there is still a draw to this team, and having this team, be in the status of it is as a team that certainly will take care of players, which I think we were hoping maybe would get this a little further than we actually are. And then Brittany Radcliffe, forward from the Courage signing. The team had a excellent tease for her signing, where they put I believe they had an orange bow sort of wrap. I think it was like an Australian player. People were guessing whether it was her, but it was pretty clear it became Radcliffe. And yeah, so solid signing, I think. Some depth up top for this team, which again, this team needs a lot of depth. So really a question of What is the international window going to look like for this team when they start actually bringing in some international players? The coach is not going to be here. We'll get a little bit into the interim coach, but I wanted to say, didn't want to interrupt you. It sounded like you had some stuff you wanted to drop.
No, not really. Other than, let's say, Brittany Ratcliffe is a player that FBref has her fourth highest comparable as Ashley Sanchez, which is funny. And she's at 80 percentile in non-penalty XG. Does not create her own shot. Does not assist whatsoever. But has puts herself in places to score, and is a good passer of the ball and receives pass as well. So she's I don't know how she fits in. I think she's going to be we have been asking for over and over again a experienced goal scorer behind Ashley Hatch. This player is not going to win the Golden Boot whatsoever, but it is an experienced player they can trust for the minutes that they need to give her. So I'm happy with that move. And Casey Kruger, fringy national team player at this point in her career. I think she's like 33, 32. I think, but this team has been searching for a dependable right back. Dorian Bailey filled that role at some point pretty well last year. Anna Halferty filled the role previously. I'm curious what they're going to do with her coming back from injury this season. Obviously, they're not going to want to throw her in the deep end. They might push her further forward because that was sort of in college. She played further forward and got relegated to that right wing back under, I think, Richie a couple years ago. So we'll be interested to see. They're not done. They can't be done. There's still work to do at center back. There's still work to do maybe on the wings. But those are one very good signing and one pretty decent signing is how I'd rate those.
Yeah, and I would look at Casey Kruger. You keep reminding me. I did not know FBref was actually tracking NWSL, so I'm so excited that
great.
They are, because we get some actual analysis. Casey Kruger, I've just pulled up her FBref and just see, well, since you're going to do the other player we brought in, I might as well take a look at myself. I'm maybe a little bit excited about this player now. She is basically 87th percentile progressive carries, successful take-ons, 68% in pass completion. Her expected assists, is the 85th percentile and 83rd percentile. That's non plus expected goals plus expected assist, and expected assist is 83 percentile. So she is certainly an attacking style fullback. And that is something I always like to see. And also her tackles aren't that great. She's pretty good with clearances. She's also in the 80th percentile in aerials won. So that's also interesting. She apparently also they have her like versus center backs as well. So maybe we're looking at a transition to a more ball carrying center back. Who knows? Maybe.
Last bit of Spirit news was announced today. Partially announced. This is kind of rumor. But Adrian Gonzalez, who's currently the head coach, or formerly the head coach of RCD Español, is said to be leaving for an opportunity in the United States they couldn't pass up. The rumor is that he will come be the assistant to Jonathan and be the interim coach in the onset because he's able to leave right now. He said he tried to make it so that he could stay until the end of the season, just same as Geraldez. But I think they probably told him this offer is only good if you come right now. Otherwise, we'll find somebody else to be the assistant coach. We need somebody right now. You do it or don't. And then he said, "Okay, thank you. I'll see you soon. I'm on my way, packing a bag."
Yeah. So we might soon have an interim coach situation. So, I guess so after all this news, what's your 1 to 10? What's your hype level for the Spirit?
5.
I'm going 6. I think the coach, I think they've nailed. I think they've got a really extremely talented coach. I'm maybe for Trinity Rodman. I'm not sure how Trinity Rodman or Ashley Hatch necessarily feel about this, but maybe I'm on board for maybe a little bit of a reset of something to build something new, to build something different. I'll be very curious to see what this team can pull internationally, whether any players from Barcelona come over, whether it's in the summer or not. There is no excuse for this team not to have made the playoffs. And I think even with trading Ashley Sanchez, the gap at Stamstad, this is a team that should still be striving to make the playoffs. And I think they still have the talent to go and do so. And I think even some of the players they've added, if everything goes right, they should be a team that's in that could be that playoff spot. Are they going to be top of the table? I don't think so. I think they'll be right in sort of that middle of the pack, unless something changes really quickly. Something with you, I'm not, my excitement is maybe a little bit lower, than it has been for this team. So
very whelmed.
Very whelmed. So we'll see right there. All right. We're gonna
30 minutes on the Spirit on the top in the off season. So if there's people out there who thought this show didn't care about the Spirit, how about that?
yeah.
How about them apples?
We went this. Now let's see how quickly we
Yeah.
get through.
Wow.
We get through DC United, which has been very, very quiet. I think quiet is the word to describe it right now. Not a whole lot of news. Maybe I'm a little bit surprised. I guess I'm more surprised. This team needs players. I think the roster. I think we were having a discussion on the Discord, and you said 1 month, and it was like, well, the window's open till April, and then he said, so yeah, well, 1 month till roster compliance, and I'm like, well, we're compliant. We're completely 100%.
We're too compliant.
We are very compliant. I use the F1 right now. If compliance is the compliance line is Max Verstappen, we are Logan Sargent right now. In that
Two people got that.
More people got that than you think.
Two, me meaning you and I, and then maybe one other person.
Yeah, there's plenty of people. Our producer Brian certainly
3. You're right.
Producer Brian certainly got that, but there is some rumblings. I think the only really player rumbling we had is DC United went and acquired the MLS rights for 21-year-old Matej Patola from Finland for up to $75 in allocation money. So I read that
75,000. You said $75. That's hilarious.
75,
low expectations for this player.
That's what it
I agree.
should be, honestly.
I agree.
But $75,000 in allocation money. I don't think. I think that's kind of like on hold. And now DC has say, hey, we've got you. Let's go try to negotiate and get you. See if we can get you under the team. Apparently, some other European teams are shopping. He is currently a free agent.
Icelandic national team player, I believe.
Finnish. I believe he's
Finnish.
Finland. I believe he's Finland.
One of those cold countries. I think he's a center back, right?
Center back / defensive midfielder. So
we need both of those. So that'd be great.
Yeah. So he can play sort of that center back role. Again, he's young, so he's kind of versatile. Maybe trying to figure out where he sort of fits best. Wasn't a lot of FB ref stats on him, but he seems like a pretty solid player. My guess is could potentially occupy one of those U22 slots. I think that would depend on cap compliance and how much.
Let's aim higher. Let's aim higher than this guy for those spots.
Yeah, definitely. But,
let's hope.
But it sort of depends on an actual signing. We don't have really more information than that. I will say I don't know if you go out and make the effort to attempt to acquire these rights if you don't feel like you can go out and sign him. So maybe we'll hear something soon. I don't know if we had this on the last show. It wasn't in our rundown, but Lesane has also hired assistant Zach Price, formerly at New Mexico United, and Alex Martinez, who I believe was the assistant at Birmingham Legion. And they also hired a goalkeeper coach, but I could not.
Who is the New York City FC third string keeper who never played a minute for them, and this is his first coaching job. So they're clearly not putting a lot of weight in MLS experience with this club at this moment. They're like, hey, we love USL Championship so much that we're just going to make a USLC Championship like all-star team from a perspective. Dane Kelly, come back on down. Who's your best, highest scorer in the championship? Come on up. We're gonna sign you.
Be an attacking coach. Yeah. I mean, I think obviously we know Troy Lesane's, pretty good. I think Zach Price has been a guy who's been around. Has been around Lesane for a while. He was also the head coach at New Mexico United. I don't think he endeared himself as much to the fans as Lesane did. So again, they're bringing coaches in. They're getting guys in there.
Is it interesting to you at all that there's no MLS experienced, like older assistant coach that's sort of like there to be like, hey, wouldn't it be beneficial other than Troy's, 6 months in charge in New York? All of these folks are not MLS experienced coaches. Does that mean anything to you?
I think it's maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to think about it. I think maybe you're right. We saw DC United. I think remember when Ben Olsen was in charge, they brought in, I believe, a coach from Inter Milan because there was some shared ownership there. Maybe we'll see that. Maybe we'll see a coach from Swansea come over who's got some of that type of experience. I think also that the issue with Ben Olsen was that he was a player who very clearly had very little tactical sense, and they're like, we need to get somebody in here who can at least guide this guy a little bit on how to tactically build a squad. And the team was very good that year. They were probably the best year they ever had under him. So
bring back Pete Shuttleworth. He doesn't have a job. Yeah. He can come back. We liked him. He's got experience.
Bring back the Carl Robinson. Why not bring him back in there?
Sure.
Bring back him in the fold. He's currently
Also
out on
unemployed.
also on an island, or maybe maybe you should have held on to Fred Brilliant.
Maybe.
Apparently not happy to be let go from the team, and we are sad about that. Don't know if we touched on that on the last show. I can't really remember. Other sort of small little news is Gabriel Pirani is not with the team right now. Where they're going to, we'll get to where they're going in a minute. Even though we did talk about it, but we got some more details about it coming up this week. Gabriel Pirani's with the Brazilian for the CONMEBOL pre-Olympic tournament. Not sure if they've had any games yet. I was maybe going to see how he looked. But again, good to see him getting minutes. He'll probably be a front runner for the Olympic team. I have no clue what DC is going to do if he's not there right now with the roster, but remains to be seen.
He was he number 10 last year? Did he have was he wearing the number 10 shirt? Okay, so I thought it was a change, but it's not.
No, we did not have a number 10 last year. So
Martin Rodriguez is wearing the 14 this year. So a number that we all care about a lot that was recently deoccupied.
Yeah, a number that. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, just say speaking of the recently former owner of that jersey, I believe Andy Nahar signed today with Olympia in Honduras.
Yep, Olympia.
So good for him. Hope that works out. I don't imagine that's more money. Maybe it was. It could be.
Are they in Champions League Champions Cup this year?
They've got to be, right?
I have to look.
Typically, they've been historically there every single year, but maybe not.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I will definitely be rooting for some Olympia if they are in Champions Cup. I don't see them listed here. Bummer. I was looking at the games. I see Comunicaciones, which I believe I thought maybe
they Costa Rican.
Yeah, you might be right. Saprisa's there. So yeah, no, does not look like. Yeah, Alajuelense are there. Yeah, no Olympia in
Champions League. Bummer.
In Champions League, which is a bummer. It's a bummer, but good for him. Glad to see him, finding a landing spot, and getting some minutes. All right, let's get to the news. The last thing we're going to end this on, maybe a semi-down note, is DC United's upcoming preseason trip to Saudi Arabia. We touched on the show. It was like, oh, it's just like they're just doing a preseason trip to Saudi Arabia. Stephen Goff out there has done a lot of excellent work.
Good job, Steve.
To basically tear all that down. No, this is they are not dipping the toes in the water. This is a whole thing. They are going to Saudi Arabia. They will be basically spending their entire preseason there. They will be there until February 9th is their last game. Maybe a couple days afterwards. It's a couple weeks till preseason. They will be playing 6 matches. They will be playing the Sudanese national team and then a bunch of other clubs around Saudi Arabia, including which one is El Edifak? I believe is the one.
Is that the Gerrard team?
I believe that's the team coached by Steven Gerrard.
Team formerly of Jordan Henderson fame until he played for 3 months for free because he tried to defer his contract, and now he plays for Ajax.
Yep. So he is
who, by the way, apparently Jordan Henderson was asking every day for the last 2 months to be let go of his contract. He hated it so much. He's like, "Can I please leave? Can I please leave? Let me quit. I'll quit. You want money? I'll give you money."
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes there.
Right? Liverpool fan have thoughts.
And the team travel and expenses will be covered by the team. They will be paid appearance fees. So great. So when are we signing Mbappe if we're not having to, or when are we going to go out and let's go get Carlos Vela? Why not? Let's spend money. If we're not going to spend money on preseason, well, then let's spend it on the friggin' roster and let's develop
that part
something.
Bothered me the most. I'm sure it did you as well. When I saw that, I was like, I mean, it's a veritable cornucopia of things that are unpleasant, as you thought. But the fact that it was like, oh, well, yeah, it's because they're being cheap. If they went to like Charleston, they'd have to pay for a bus and they'd have to pay for like the Holiday Inn. And they were like, no. But what if we went to the other part of the world and played Sudan and didn't have to pay any money and in fact got money? That sounds like a better deal. Let's do that.
Yeah, really. I mean, you talk about it too, not just the bus, like the hotels, probably the use of the training facilities, like all of that is probably being covered.
Mm-hmm.
So legitimately, they're just paying for like the money they have to pay the players already to basically be out there. So it's to me, it really speaks that they know they can. I look at, and I was just thinking about this. We had some other related MLS controversial news with Sporting KC hiring Gavin Wilkinson. If you haven't been paying much attention and what's been going on there.
If you blink, you might have missed it.
Yeah. 8 days he was in charge. He was announced. If you don't know, Gavin Wilkinson was named in the Yates report, who really is probably more famously for not believing, I believe it was Shim, or with the abuse from Paul Riley and sort of kind of discounting it, having to sort of let go of Paul Riley, sort of giving him a letter of recommendation despite knowing about the abuse. A lot of really horrible stuff. Was hired by KC. The fans came out. There was the ladies of SKC who I think sort of led the charge. There was a lot of fans, the local media and everything like that came out and said, "Hey, this is bad. You should not hire this man." And the team did eventually cave and say, "Yeah, you're right. We shouldn't have done this. Our fault. We're going to rescind this." I don't think DC has that anymore. I think maybe 10 years ago they would have had that if they had tried to pull this. And I think maybe they could have, they could have gotten the team maybe to reverse course. I'm not sure that exists, or at least maybe like do this and then be like, all right, we're done. We're sorry. We're not doing that again. We just couldn't, like, we already agreed to this. Sorry, contract signed. But we promise we won't do it again. The amount of, they feel like there's no more pull anymore. There's no, it's all just kind of like dead at this point. And that to me is the saddest part about it, is like, and I'm seeing a lot of people, and I think a lot of people who are kind of saying, I'm never coming back. I think inevitably there might be some people that do eventually come back, but I think there will still be people who are very much like, I'm done. That's it. And, it's very easy for them to do so because the team's terrible. Hasn't been fun to watch this team. And even if you were maybe getting a little excited about a new build, all that kind of goes away when you have this. So it's very terrible. It's very terrible and awful.
We talked about it a couple weeks ago that this, just because this is the way of the world and it's going to get more and more so over the future, doesn't mean you have to like it. It just means that it is true. I think that the thing I didn't enjoy about this story, and again, kudos to Goff for really digging in here and getting the details. One was that it was a financial situation, which made me just like harken back to all of the cliches about what people think about DC United's ownership and what we have heard from people who have left, what we have heard from people close to the team, et cetera, et cetera. That's one part. But the part that this is not just a one-off, that this is intended to be this is a big hug to Saudi Arabia and sort of, I don't know if it's the sovereign wealth fund or sort of the investment vehicles in there. I'm not sure what that vehicle is, but it seems very much like this is not the last you're going to hear this. There's going to be a delegation here. There's hope that potentially you could host the clubs when they come to America. It's not just we needed a place to go, so we went here. It's more like we see this as a fertile business opportunity, and we hear you. They've not even actually responded and saying we hear you about your concerns. They're just basically saying we're going to do this anyway, and we're probably going to do more of it. So get on board or get out of the way is sort of the vibe. We're going to find out, right? We'll see what this is. I prefer they didn't do it. That'd be my official. That's as strong as I'll get on this show. I prefer they didn't do this.
Yeah, there's two things about this. Number one is they want the games to be, they want friendlies to be scheduled with, even if they can't get, the Cristiano Ronaldo club, they can get a big club with a lot of big names that they can sell tickets to if they come here. That's probably part of this goal here. And they're not the only MLS team to do it. Inter Miami's about ready to go off to Saudi Arabia. But
there'll be more next year. If they're coming to us, they're going to come to a lot of other teams next year. You better believe it.
A lot of other MLS fans have been kind of dunking on DC, and rightfully so. If you think that your organization is above this, I have some bad news for you. They're not, and they will definitely jump at this if they feel like they can get away with it like DC. So again, I could very well see some other teams this becoming maybe a regular thing. But about getting those clubs in, I have great fears, and this could impact my. I have great fears. We've already seen the sovereign wealth fund invest in the Wizards and Capitals. That's caused some people to walk away from the team. I have great fears that we're going to see maybe some sovereign wealth fund investment right in DC. And a lot of people I think have asked, what is Saudi Arabia? I don't understand what Saudi Arabia gets this. Whatever they're paying to host DC and the fees, it's a drop in the bucket. It doesn't cost them very much. And there's, some huge upside as far as like investing in an American league and sort of having a venture in that area, which is really what they want. So it's yes, maybe they don't get a lot from it initially, but they want more sort of things like that. Maybe they get LA next year. Maybe they get a bigger commitment from Miami. So I think you need to think about this as kind of like, I don't know, like when a company tries out a trial of something, it's like, we talked about when Flow Sports had the DC rights. It was like, well, how does this make sense for Flow Sports? And it's like, really, it's just to get people's foot in the door. They've got other things they're going to make money off of, but this is kind of like the big thing to sort of say, hey, we're hosting a big time professional sport now. So
Remember when Uber was cheap? It's like that. It's like how we used to rob. I'm like, man, how could they afford to do this? This is great. What's in it for them? This is great for me. I'm paying $4 for a cab ride that would have cost me $30. This is fantastic. And then 10 years on, you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. Now it's $70 to take Uber. I wonder how that happened. That snuck up on me slow. So yeah, money is cheap. Money is cheap for those folks at the moment. So that's what they're able to spend, and people need it and they can use that. So I think that, we've sort of said where we're at. It is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it. People who are upset, I support them. People who are okay with it, I support that. You do what you got to do. I will just say again, this didn't have to happen. This now becomes a storyline that did not have to occur. They could have gone anywhere else. They could have gone anywhere sunny. They could have gone to Florida like Loudon has gone. But they didn't, and that's where we find ourselves. Let's see what this new money does for this club, if it does anything at all.
It's hilarious that Loudon United is going to spend more money on their teams this season than DC United at this point.
That's funny.
Yeah. All right, folks. Sorry to end on a down note. Maybe we'll have some more positive news coming up. But
if you want positive news, go watch the Gavin Turner free kick goal from Loudon United practice yesterday. There's a DC United Youth International that is. Hope maybe we'll sign him. That'll be our good point.
I think the team should. I'm actually a little surprised that he is sort of with Loudon and not.
He's recovering from a double knee injury last year. I think
okay. Got you. That makes more sense then. But yeah, I think there are some. I think I saw some youth players post about how they are headed off to Saudi Arabia.
Love it.
I think
really?
Yeah, I saw. I forget who I saw, but I saw some youth academy guys. One guy to get committed to EVA is traveling with the team. Or he posted the preseason in his like Instagram story. So I don't know why else he would do that other than that he is going. And I did not catch his name.
I continue to laugh. I continue to laugh that Christian Benteke had to fly from Dubai to Loudon back to Saudi Arabia over the course of a week and a half. Still think that's hilarious, but well.
Yeah, he's paid. He's paid.
He is. He's in a comfy seat. He's not in economy.
He's paid well to do that. Anyway, folks, I think that's going to do it. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back in a couple weeks. We'll do better about I think we did not get you guys a Patreon show. We'll do better about that for your Patreon listeners. Again, patreon.com/RFQRefugees. Thank you guys for listening. We will catch you guys in a couple weeks. Vamos.